Hey guys, this is Alex here, and what I wanted to do in this video today is go through a little bit about how I use Memrise, and specifically how I use Memrise to learn English vocabulary, so like SAT type vocabulary words, try to increase my vocabulary a little bit. So this is something I do every day, and I just come on, I review the words, I learn new words, and I use memory techniques to learn most of it. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, and hopefully, I can use this. I can share this with you guys, and hopefully it's helpful, and also I can use it to maybe examine my own process and what needs tweaking and what's good. So I use, like I said, I use Memrise to learn English vocabulary. That's really the only thing I use it for at this point. What it is a website created by Ed Cook, whose name may be familiar to those of you who have read Moonwalking with Einstein. That basically allows you to crowdsource mnemonics. So if you're taking like Chinese, you sign up for their Chinese course, and then every time a new word comes up, you can create your own mnemonic. You can choose from a list of pre-created mnemonics that other people have created, and the more popular ones get pushed to the front. So it's a pretty cool, inventive idea, and I like using it. And it also, in comparison to something like Anki, which is what I use for most of my other notes, Anki is a little more flexible in terms of creating new cards, but I do like the sort of gamified style of Memrise. You can, it's a little more fun to use, and they quiz you, on the words in different ways rather than just, word definition. Is something quite as simple as that. So in a really old video, I had talked a little bit about a pretty basic strategy for learning vocabulary with memory techniques, and that was what is essentially called the keyword method. So the keyword method is basically just, you have a word, you have a definition, you imagine some sort of image to represent the word, and you do the same for the definition, and then you link those images together in some sort of story in your head. And the way I described it in the video, it's sort of just, those images are kind of just floating in free space. There's no memory palace that I put those images into. And the truth is, the way that I actually learn vocabulary and practice is not quite that simple. So generally, I'll use a couple different methods to do it often. The most common way is to, essentially do the keyword method, but then actually put it into a locus in a memory palace. Sometimes, if I see a mnemonic, or they call them mems in Memrise, if I see a mem that I like, I might just, use it and not really store it in any memory palace. Sometimes, even beyond that, I will look at a word, and maybe it's a word that I already kind of know, or it already sounds to me. It's, for some reason, it makes me think of the definition. I really won't create any sort of images for it, but I'll keep it around just because I want to review it in the future and make sure that, if it comes up in the future, I know what it means, and it's not just sort of a hazy sense of what the meaning is. So, those are a couple of different ways that I deal with encoding, and learning these English words. So what I'm going to do, my mouth's starting to get dry, is basically just take you through a session that I would do on Memrise, and I haven't done this before. These particular words. So I'm just going to, I'm seeing these words for the first time, and hopefully something suitable comes out of it. So let's go ahead and dive in real quick. Wrinkle. Okay, so so wrinkle means annoy. This is a word that I don't really know, but again, it's kind of one of those words that I sort of have a sense of. And so rankle already kind of sounds to me like, you rankle someone, you annoy them. It almost kind of has that feel to it. So, I kind of do like this image right here, just imagining, splashing a cat in a tub of water. There's not really any connection there between the word rankle and doing that, but sometimes, just having an association between, the word rankle when you see it and just thinking of this picture is kind of a useful memory technique in itself. So I'm just going to go ahead and click that one and move forward, not really keep track of it. I will usually just take brief notes in a Google spreadsheet alongside Memrise, so in addition to having the mnemonic written in Memrise. So let me just go ahead and add that in real quick. Wrinkle, it's a verb, and it basically just means to annoy. And then, like I kind of borrowed this mnemonic, so I'm just going to go ahead and write in cat. Yeah, I try my best to keep my descriptions of the mnemonics as simple, as concise as possible. So that's obviously a pretty short mnemonic right there. So what I also like to do is come up with some sort of contextualized version of the word. So having that word in a sentence, because basically the way Memrise presents it, it's just a word and its definition. You don't have a lot of context. You haven't really heard that word being used in day-to-day life and conversation. So I'll use this website, words in a sentence, and just search it, and come up with one that I like. And oftentimes, if it's suitable, I will occasionally take that sentence, the kind of one example sentence that I'll use for that word and tie it into the mnemonic somehow. So that's not really the case here, but hopefully we'll see that in an example moving forward. Yeah, so this is a good one. The fact that the plane is leaving 2 hours late is certainly going to rankle the passenger. So that's an easy way of getting a sense of, of how the word is used in actuality. I'll just put it right in there. Okay. And maybe in my head I might just kind of imagine that that cat is really trying to catch this plane, and so I'm putting it in the bathtub. I'm rankling up the cat, and he's really annoyed because he wants to catch his plane. So I'm not really writing that in, but it's just sort of an extra hook, an extra kind of mental image that I have. Okay, interdict. So I already have some words that I am familiar with, and so I'll just skip. So let's just skip that one. So rankle, annoy, and in these first few kind of repetitions, I try my best to really bring that image to mind as much as possible. Sacrilegious, skip that. Quiescence, skip that. Reprieve, skip that. Okay, penury. Okay, this is a pretty good one. So I actually learned a word earlier in this in Memrise, which is penurious, which basically means being poor. So a penurious person doesn't have a lot of money. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of have it probably up here somewhere. Yep, penurious right there. So I had an actual Memory Palace image of this guy Yuri. So for some reason Yuri often comes up either in memory sports and memory competitions or in just day-to-day life. So I always have this kind of standard image of this guy Yuri, who I think I originally took from the Pink Panther movies with Steve Martin. Don't quote me on that, but I always use him when I want to use remember the word Yuri. So basically, I had this location that I was using, which is near this tent. So just if you can imagine this tent, and then I have Yuri coming up asking for money. So I'm sort of thinking of it as pen already sounds like penny, so you can start to think of money. So maybe we just can adjust this. So Yuri is begging for pennies, so pennies for Yuri, penurious. And I put him, near this tent in my Memory Palace. And so, just to digress a little bit and explain this, the way that I use Memory Palaces in this sense is that I create them as I go. So when I first started learning English words in Memrise, I went to my usual Memory Palaces brainstormed spreadsheet, which just has lots of ideas for possible palaces, and I just picked one. So the one I picked at the time, this is over a year ago now, was basically my friend's neighborhood. So one of my friends in Oxford, Mississippi, I knew his neighborhood pretty well, so I decided to start with that. And then as I learn new words, I'll just pick new loci wherever I am mentally in the Memory Palace. And so I just do it as I go. I don't have these loci chosen, laid out beforehand, so I'm just choosing them. And so, I moved through his neighborhood. I eventually, came down this road, which is called Anderson Road in reality. And I imagined that there was a tent sort of off to the right side of the road. So that's where Yuri is standing here asking for pennies, penurious. He's very poor. And, adding that tent in there, adding the loci in there is interesting to me for a few reasons. like I said, the way I sort of taught it in that original video was just using free floating images. I like using the palace if it's suitable for a few reasons. One of them is just that it's an extra hook. So, in addition to having this kind of idea of Yuri wanting pennies and being poor, I have a specific place that I can always teleport to mentally, and it's nice and kind of organized in that way. So I like doing that if it's suitable. So yeah, let's just leave it at there for a second. I'm going to go ahead and log in Penuri as well. So poverty, and then I usually just write RC if I want to recall something. So RC for recall. So recall that I already learned it before. And like I said, usually I'll find some sort of example sentence to kind of tie to the mnemonic, but here I'm just going to skip it because we already did that. Or I didn't really talk about it before, but I already have that word sort of in my head, so let's forget about that one. Let's move to the next one. Copy this in real quick. So, I usually will both write the mnemonic into my spreadsheet and then also into Memrise itself. Okay, so imagining Yuri asking for pennies near the tent. Okay, posit, let's skip that one. Okay, pedagogue. Peak. No. All right, hopefully I'll find one that's good here. Okay, so anyone who's gone to college probably is familiar with that. Hopefully I'll come up with a good one here soon. So Penuri, again, poverty. Wrinkle, I'll think of that cat and how he wants to get on the airplane. And so, hopefully I'm kind of conveying that I try to be as, well, I allow myself to be sort of as fast and loose as I can. I don't necessarily put every single thing into a memory palace. I just do it when I feel like it's suitable, that it works well. Wrinkle, Penuri. So that's that one. Let's keep going a little bit longer and see if I can't find one at least good example word here. Retrench. Okay, this is a tricky word, and I'm not really familiar with this. Okay, so let's think about how retrench is used in a sentence. So again, this is sort of an organic process. I've never seen this word before, and this is actually kind of what I do when I'm in the moment trying to learn these things. Retrench. Oh no. Let's see if we can't find something else. So the economize is just not really sort of doing it for me. I don't really have a good sense of what retrench means, other than make something marketable or turn it into a business or something like that. Oh, here we go. So just using Google. Oh, okay. So it's more economize, meaning kind of scale back. Company retrenched. Okay, so that's a good little example sentence here. So I'm going to go ahead and put that into my example. And so, like I sort of said, often I will try to tie in my example sentence into the mnemonic somehow. And I think in this case, this is actually a pretty good time to do that. A pretty good time to tie in the example into the image, and also a pretty good time to use images stored in the memory palace for this word. So economize, I'm just going to go ahead and write in scale back. So, like I said, I choose these loci as I go. So my last locus that I used was this sort of hill on the right side of Anderson Road. So, moving forward in this palace, there was this hill there. The next locus that sort of comes to mind is there's a set of doors, a set of apartments. They're kind of just like duplexes to the left of the street. So I'm just gonna use that sort of place as the next locus. Okay. So what I'm going to do, instead of using the doors, I'm going to imagine the kind of ditch on the side of that apartment next to duplexes. And so what I'm going to imagine is that the people of the duplexes, they're getting a lot of cutbacks, and they need to scale back. They need to economize. They need to entrench. So to do that, instead of using their own bathrooms, they're going to go out to the side of their buildings and dig a trench, basically a latrine, to use instead of their toilets. So this is one of their ways of scaling back. So let's see. I usually try to write concisely and just capitalize the images that are important. So so economizing by digging trench. So that's it. Okay, so imagining these people, they're coming out of their houses, they're moving out down to the trench next to their duplexes, and they're digging this trench to economize, to scale back. And so sometimes I even tie in the example sentence to sort of fit the mnemonic. So as a result of this recession, the tenants had to retrench. So I'm imagining these people coming out and they're digging their trench. So that's that's hopefully one that makes it clear how sort of my thought process is going into this. So with that, let us and just to wrap it up here, this is what I'll actually do is write in the mnemonic here. Okay, so with that, let's just pause and exit real quick. So hopefully that gives you a sense of the way I kind of do this. It probably sounds like a pretty slow process from all that, but it actually gets quite quick, and I'm usually able to go through these things pretty quick on my own. So with that, let me go back to the Memrise home, and just hopefully that gives you a sense of I try to be, like I said, a little bit fast and loose with it, not really trying to be too rigid about the way I do things, always putting it into a palace. If it comes to me quickly and I already feel like I have a sense of the word, I won't go through extra steps and put it into a palace. I'll just, try to think of the first thing that comes to mind. So let me just go through a few quick review examples here. Okay, so body sexually liberal. Okay, this is licentious, and actually, I didn't really use a memory palace location at all for this. I just used one of the pre-generated mems from Memrise, which is imagining somebody with a license to be really sexually liberal. So license for licentious, and that is that's all I did. So like I said, I didn't use any kind of location because I like just thinking of license to be sexually liberal. It comes very it just feels very obvious to me. So so that's what I used for that one. Omen or sign. Okay, so this is portent. So, I'd mentioned that I thought of a tent on the side of the road when I was talking about penurious. And that was actually because I created this, I sort of made up a locus, which was a tent, because there's this, this kind of ditch area on the side of the road. And I just imagined that somebody was living in a tent there. And sort of imagine that it was a hippie and they were sort of sitting in their tent holding this omen, this sign, sort of thinking about how bad the future was going to be. And it was sort of a dilapidated tent. It was a poor tent. So, poor tent is an omen or a sign. So you can see here that I wrote in this little description here. And my example was, the thunder was a portent of an approaching storm. So, you'll find that here. I sort of imagined at the time, now that I think about it, thunder kind of raining down onto the tent, just to sort of tie in, that example with the image itself. Okay, so extremely poor, also someone unwilling to spend money. So I believe this is impecunious, and it sounds very similar to penurious, but it actually is, it's just a sort of a synonym type word. This one, I did put it on a location. I imagined an imp who was really poor and needed money. Oops. Oh, maybe it is penurious. Sometimes there are synonyms. Okay. Sometimes there are synonyms, and if you pop them up, it won't register properly. So be indecisive, dither. This is one, I just chose the mem that I saw. It doesn't even make a lot of sense. It's just a picture, but I, have kind of tied down that association at this point. I didn't really feel like it was necessary or really even that suitable for that matter to put this sort of image into a location, or to think of an image at all, really. So dither, moving on, excessive interest in sexual matters, period. Okay, so this is salacious. Another one, I've heard the word salacious before, really, so I just wanted to review it. I didn't create any images for it. Cruel speech or writing. I'm guessing this is diatribe again. Oh, maybe not. Acerbic? Yeah, acerbic. So it's an adjective, I guess. Diatribe is sort of a similar meaning. Didn't think of images for either of those. Well-timed, suitable, apposite. And this one I always, again, just kind of thought of like positively. So it's positively relevant, positively suitable. So no really images or loci for that one. Cruel speech or writing, acerbic. Okay, so there it is, and hopefully that gives you some sense of how I actually use Memrise and how I use memory techniques in kind of a very general sense to learn vocabulary. So hopefully I haven't been too confusing about this. If none of this sort of memory technique stuff makes sense to you, I encourage you to go back and check out Mullen Memrise Getting Started and Refine Your Technique video series. Those are kind of a basic video introduction to the techniques if none of this really makes much sense at all. And so yeah, I'd encourage you to check that out. We have tips and other videos on our site, so I'd encourage you to check those out. And please let me know what you think in the comments or through the website. So yeah, that'll be Memrise and learning English vocabulary for now. So this is Alex Mullen signing off.